Welcome back to another episode of the Low Man Help podcast. We are joined today by our returning guest, our permanent sub, the guy that always pitches in, always to be counted on. You're like John Wayne, always doubles back for a compadre, the one and only Daniel Green. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate you, man. It's good to be back.
Oh. This is our first annual Danny Green All-Stars. This draws inspiration from two pieces before it. One, the Michael Lewis, Shane Battier profile, the No Stats All-Stars back in 2009. And then the other, Zach Lowe's long-running column, the Luke Walton All-Stars. And so both of these highlighted guys in the league that weren't always getting the shine. Shane Battier's one was really a deep dive into analytics and how he would welcome it from Morey and the front office and those guys in Houston. The Luke Walton All-Stars really talked about guys that were punching above their contract weight for that year, maybe guys that weren't supposed to have the role they were having, but were outperforming the contract and the role that they thought they would be given. The Danny Green All-Stars are a little different. One, we actually have Danny Green. You have picked your All-Stars, but also you have two different versions of the Danny Green All-Stars. We have Team Stick, which is, your journey basically as a second round guy, somebody who the odds are absolutely stacked against to make it in the league. And then we have Team Over the Top, which is the second part of your career. And you've said the player doesn't change, but the perception does. But the over the top is the best role players who have a chance to be the differentiating factor from a team winning a championship and a team not winning a championship. So like the fact that you've had these two iterations of your career and these two humps to get over, it's kind of fucking awesome, man. Like when you really think about it, it's incredible. Like I'll go deeper into it, but like, what do those two different jumps in your career mean to you? Like, did you feel yourself get over each hump, and what did it kind of like internally do to you confidence wise and how you carried yourself and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes year by year, but you can feel everything because I think the expectation changes more so than anything. When you've done it before and you've done it at a high level, they expected you to do it again or even better, especially if you get a new contract. They expect you to do it every night, even better, which is not realistic. And especially in a league where, I mean, as easy as it seems to score baskets and that it seems like a low IQ league, guys know what you can do. So the more they know your personnel, the harder it is to do what you do at a higher level. So yes, each year there was a jump. And the confidence came from just putting in the work and my coaching staff mostly. I have to give a lot of credit to Will Hardy and Chad Forcier. Those are the two main guys that I worked with when I was coming into the Spurs system. And, 2-a-days every day working on form shooting the same way every time, getting the reps in, getting the same footwork in. Those guys instilled a lot in me. Multitude of reps, thousands of reps every day. And also have my back with Pop, this is where we should use Danny, or put Danny in this situation. After timeout, see where Danny, check his temperature, or he should be on the floor defensively doing this and that. It was fun, man. And I had great supporting cast or great teammates that allowed me to do my job and make it easy for me.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through the over the top team. So we're gonna go through the five guys that you picked that we talked about that are gonna be influencing the championship picture, that we think are those guys that really put a team over a top, that put we before me, all that stuff. Like really the second part of your career, when after you broke through, like that everybody else started to see you did these things. But the first part, breaking through, like you had this stretch. And so for anybody that doesn't know, second round pick, out of every 10 guys picked in the second round, about 3.5 of them will make it past the average NBA career. And then to make it to a 10-year career as a second round pick, 1 out of every 10 guys is going to do it. So 3 guys almost in every draft, 3.5. It's just the odds are so stacked against you. So for you to break through, like it's something that really takes an immense amount of mental fortitude, confidence in yourself, undying self-belief, and you're going to face adversity when you're in that position because everybody else is going to get the reps before you. You're not going to be the one who's the chosen one who can mess up. And I always talk about it as like, like you have to be ready when that opportunity knocks. Like you can't be worried about getting ready then, and so you can
Yeah,
kick the door open. And so like
a hundred
that's
percent.
yeah. Go ahead.
I didn't know these numbers. It's kind of crazy to think about it. It's wild because San Antonio we were made up of a lot of second rounders,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of guys that were late first. They find guys in random places, so the percentages are crazy. And what you said is probably the most important because a lot of second rounders don't get opportunity. They're going to groom their first rounders first. They're going to give those guys the keys a
Mm-hmm.
chance. For second rounders have to work double the amount to get that opportunity. Like I seen Patty
Mm-hmm.
Mills do it.
Yeah.
Like in order for him to get some minutes over Corey Joseph or to be in the same conversation over Corey Joseph, he had to work extra, overtime, lose a lot of weight, do some crazy. Like he looked sick one season. He came back, cut his hair, was bald, had no facial hair, was skinny as hell, just to get himself some extra, like some more minutes or look that seriously. But so for second rounders, they don't look at you as like a guy we're gonna, groom or give the keys to or make the franchise player or make you a focal point in the offense or defense.
Yeah.
You kind of have to really earn that.
Yeah, it's a real thing. You beat the odds. There's something about I'll just go a quick run through because we're not going to go through our 5 guys that we feel
Mm-hmm.
like this year have gotten over the top. We'll put it out in a piece, but I just want to go through your start because it was second round Cleveland, then the lockout year, and I think one of the coolest things that in your journey, and we talk about like adversity and being able to meet adversity, you went and played EuroLeague. You were in Ljubljana, like you went to Slovenia. Was Luka's dad on that
EuroLeague
team?
was his dad was not. He was there though.
He
He
was
was a
there,
ball
right?
boy.
He's like a club
It,
legend, the
I
Ljubljana,
think he
right?
was a. I think he was. Yeah, I think he was a ball boy.
Okay.
I don't think his dad was. He
Yeah.
might have been around, but
Yeah.
I didn't know his dad. He mentioned to me because who's big over there is the Dragics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Goran and Zoran. So I got a chance to play against Zoran.
Mm-hmm.
Goran already his name was household at that point.
Yeah. And you were with our
He started
college
doing it.
teammate too, as well.
I was with Deion
Yeah.
Thompson, and
Dion.
then I was with Davies Bertans as well, who was drafted by the Spurs. They owned his rights, but they hadn't brought him over yet.
Oh, man.
So Davies Bertans. So we had some good pieces, whatever, but
Small
we
world.
weren't great in EuroLeague. In
No.
Adriatic League, we're okay.
You had it to,
We're okay in Adriatic League.
and then you come back. And so this is your breakout year. So you play 26 games coming off the bench to start the breakout year in San Antonio. Not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You're splitting at 40%, 37, and I don't know 77% from the free throw line. You're not playing out of this world, but then they give you a shot. And coming down the last 40 games, you start 38 and you guys go 33-7, and you come out and you split at 46, 47 from 3 and 80 from the free throw line. And like it's that moment, like that little stretch, those last 40, 33-7, 38 starts, like you go ahead and you light up 47 from 3 in that stretch. Like, did you feel yourself get over, because you weren't on the next deal, like your first multi-year deal, you weren't on it yet.
When you brought up those numbers, the first thing that came to mind was my first start, and
Yeah,
it was probably
your first
the worst
when
start.
I was looking through Basketball Reference,
the first start was
couple.
bad, and they were like, "Look, man, just relax, stop worrying about it. Don't think about it. Just play basketball. The numbers are in your favor at this point." I think my first start was in Philly, and I was like 0 for 9 or some shit like that, maybe 1 for 9. And I'm like, look, the numbers are with you. You're gonna catch heat one sooner or later, and then But that's the life of a shooter. And that's when I started to understand that, like, you're gonna have cold spells, you're gonna have hot spots. So after that, I would go on the heater where 5 or 6 games I'd make over 50% the next of my threes taken in the next 5 or 6 games. And then Pop and the coaching staff, it made me feel better that they didn't think like, oh, we made a bad decision by starting this kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I never felt I was here because Pop never allowed me to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. And that's probably why the numbers were, I felt like I was fighting for my spot.
Mm-hmm.
I had to keep that same hunger. I had to keep that same mental, edge and attitude in order to stay at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I did sign the contract, it didn't matter. There was times where I'd still be in the doghouse and he'd bench me or come out the game quick and then not go back in for some time, depending on how I was playing that day. But I never felt I was here mentally or emotionally with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, physically, I was like, okay, I think it was when I knew I can compete and I was like, all right, I can figure this out regardless of where I'm at, where I go, I'll be okay. Me being a transition shooter, that pace helped me look efficient and be efficient. So
So
yes, those
after that stretch where you come off the bench, then you start, we talk about this is like you've stuck. Your next 663 games, you started 643. You shot it at 42% overall, 39.9 from three. We're gonna bump you up to 40. We're gonna give it to you. We like you too much around here.
thanks, man.
Yeah. Effective field goal 55. I mean, like, and mixed in there in that stretch, there's LA, there's Philly, there's San Antonio, there's Toronto, and mixed in that big old chunk of every single year you played about 74 games. You started about 71 and a half, and there's 3 championships. And I don't know if you missed a game in the playoffs or you didn't, but like that's a hell of a run to be like,
Man,
I'm going to nowhere in the second round. I'm sitting on the bench in Cleveland. You played 28 games there over 2 years. I'm going to Euro League. I'm coming back.
yeah.
I'm scrapping and clawing. Like I'm over the hump, and now like I'm here, man. It's a hell of a fucking run.
Listen, so this is when you said these things, when you ask these questions or bring these, like, certain things come to mind. And I never let myself try to reminisce because I felt like that's when I would be like, oh shit, like I made it. I would be very satisfied.
That's the favorite thing. But you were out there playing, like you knew who you were. So these are your 5 guys, our 5 guys that we believe have a chance to be that guy that affects a championship team, not as a star player, but really amplifies the star players on both ends of the floors, know how to plays off the advantages that it creates. So our first guy, the guy, and you love this guy, I love this guy. He's just, it doesn't matter what situation he's been in. He's always been somebody that you look at him and it's like, this guy puts we above me at all costs. Like, you know, he's going to have like that mentality. And that's kind of like the embodiment of like what you were as a player and what this team symbolizes. Isaiah Hartenstein, Oklahoma City Thunder, playing 28 minutes a game, 11 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.9 stocks a game. He is team personified, whatever it takes. What do you love about Isaiah, and why do you think he's kind of that ingredient that can put them over the top?
His journey, because he didn't, I remember I was rehabbing with Isaiah. I don't know if I told you this. When I tore my knee, he was in the same rehab facility for his foot.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy that nobody was sure was going to stick. Like, he's a big body, good 7-footer.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I forget who he was with, but he wasn't playing a lot of minutes. And I think this is right before he signed with the New York.
So he had a few things before. I remember picking him up in my like my mind because he signed in Denver when I was still looking at a lot of Denver stuff. And he was backing up Jokic, but like he just wasn't getting run. He was like the third big, and like he would get a spurt every now and again. But like you were like, huh, is this going to work? And then I think after Denver, it was to the Clippers, and then Clippers to New York. But the Clippers,
that's why he was in LA, because he was the Clippers, and he just played the Clippers last night. Like, Clippers have Zubac, don't get me wrong, he's very good. But imagine having Zubac and Isaiah Hartenstein together.
Yeah.
And him and Zoo are going back at it. I'm like, pretty sure this is his old team. I didn't look it up.
Yeah, so tell me about the rehab thing. He's there, you're there.
He's rehabbing. They're not sure. I'm like, he's a good big, and even the PTs are like, yeah, he's good. And they're like, we don't know what he looks like and how his body's going to react, because your body can be, Myers Leonard, or it can bounce back, because Myers couldn't recover. He had some injuries too that just couldn't recover, and he had a great career too, but he had recently retired. But Isaiah, like, he had foot issues and he was rehabbing. And even with his foot being 100%, they weren't sure how good he was going to be. So coming from the Clippers and being like, a very low minute guy to going to New York, and then being a staple.
I mean, his run in the playoffs last year was
Mitchell Robinson being hurt, and then showing that you can do more. Not only just the floater, hook shot, but you can run, rebound, protect the rim, block shots, and you can quarterback. Now they're starting offenses.
That's my favorite thing about him.
Running offenses through you. It's like, Isaiah, what the hell, man? You just became, you went from this guy to, what I'm saying? Your trajectory was crazy within a short span, because I only tore my knee like 2.5, 3 years ago at this point. He was in there. So in 3 years, you're $80 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, you went from off the bench to an $80 million man on a team that could be a championship team. And when Chet is out, you're a starter. You start on any team in this league, but
he's starting on any team.
Because the lineup. just because the lineups and everything. So sometimes he starts, sometimes he doesn't. But Chet is out right now. They're still winning games. They beat a very good Clipper team last night, and he played well.
So you
And
mentioned something about him quarterbacking, and I think like it's one of the things that when I watch him play, it's probably my most favorite part of his game. And it really shines on the offensive end. Like you don't get to
Mhm,
see unless you're on the bench or unless you're
mhm,
understanding like what are the actual defensive schemes that we're going to try to do. It's tough to really decipher like is he having a great game defensively, like are the coverages all good, like you can kind of have your opinions, but like you don't really know like what teams are willing to give up or not willing to give up. So it's a little bit harder to watch it from the outside and know. But on the offensive end, like he's just always making the right read, whether it's in the short roll to floater, short roll to dunker, short roll to kick out, like short coming
backdoor
out.
passes.
Yes.
So this way, like he's making the decisions of who to DHO to, who to set screens to, who to look for on certain over the top backdoor pass. And passing bigs are hard to come by. And Isaiah is one of those guys. Every cut is a live cut or a live action
Mm-hmm.
with him, and you better be ready because he's going to find you. He'll throw it. And the guys that they won with last night, they did it without Jalen Williams and without Chet. They have Aaron Wiggins coming in and filling in and playing well for like other guys that you don't expect.
Yeah.
And they plug and play, and they're just playing well. And he's making them look really good too. He's setting good
Yeah.
screens and doing little things and finding them on backdoor layups.
He's one of the reasons I'm lower on New York. I thought he was incredible last year. I thought like there's something about, and Brunson is a little bit in like SGA. They don't play the same game, but they bring two to the level of the ball a lot in ball screens. And so
Mm-hmm.
like when he's in the pick and roll, Hartenstein this year, he's got the 10th highest blitz rate. So like a lot of that's SGA bringing two to the ball. So like almost 8% of the time, the pick and rolls where he's setting are getting blitzed. And I think in New
Mm-hmm.
York, it was a lot of the same things with Brunson. And so his skill set, what you just talked about, being able to have everything be a live cut when he gets the ball in that short roll, to me, it's why I'm a little bit more down on New York and a lot higher on OKC because he amplifies the next phase after the 4-on-3. After SGA creates this advantage, like he's able to amplify that next part of it. And I think that's an element they were missing. I think it's something that when they get in the playoffs, it's going to be really obvious that like, wow, this guy is like even better and matters even more. And so like to
Mm-hmm.
me, like seeing their numbers are eye popping from cleaning the glass. Like when it's Hartenstein, SJ, and Williams on the court together this year, that's a ton of possessions. They're plus 15. 98th percentile. And then if you just put Chet and Hartenstein on, so like double big, they're
Mm-hmm.
15.2, 98th percentile still. So like he takes whatever the lineup is and he understands where he fits within it and amplifies everything. And I think that's just like, that's kind of like the Danny Green All-Stars personified. It's what are these things that these other people do well? My strengths, like how do I find the
And knowing who
pockets
you
for my
are.
strengths? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Knowing who you are is the biggest key, man, of
Mm-hmm.
staying. Knowing who you are, knowing what you can do. And that was a question. So that I mean, Dylan Brooks is Dylan Brooks. He's different, but he is like, yo. As soon as I got to Memphis, what's the key of you lasting this long? And I said, just knowing who you are, man, and knowing, you know what I'm saying, not trying to be more than what if they actually be, of course, work on those things. But they brought you in to do a certain like what you're good at.
Yeah.
Knowing who you are, do that job. And at the time, this is Memphis where he was like trying to get before he got the $90 million contract, but
Bag.
he was a scorer early on
Mm-hmm.
shooting. It's like, that may not be your role is to play defense, knock down shots here and there, but you don't need to come on pick and roll or force an issue to try to score. He doesn't do that anymore in Houston. I think he's more settling to
You
knowing
got
who he is.
Dylan
But
the
the sooner
bag.
you find that, yeah, as soon as you find, no, I did not. But
You got Dylan the bag, Danny.
the sooner you figure out, this is who I am, I know who I am, and being comfortable with that, the easier it is your life will be in certain systems. So I think like he's doing very well and efficient in Houston, and he knows he's comfortable where he's at, and that'll make your career last a lot longer than it is like trying to be the guy.
Well said. For those wondering, Danny did not put Dylan Brooks on the Danny Green All Star. So,
I did not.
all
I
right.
did
So
not.
our next guy from the same team, one of your former teammates, and you can give us a little bit about him there. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. He's also plug and play to what they do. You talked about having guys that are plug and play that fit in. And Alex Caruso is one of those guys that the numbers don't pop out at you. Like if I tell you he's averaging 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, and we're like, this is one of the guys that's going to really matter in a championship picture. Like if you don't watch him play, none of that really tracks. But like this dude is one of those guys where it feels like one of the Popeye memes or something, where there's like he's on a boat and there's like a flood here or flood here. He just plugs every single hole that you can think of. You can play him up positions, down. He can guard up, he can guard down. He can play five
Without you
sometimes for them.
noticing. He's like a
Without
ninja.
he just makes it happen. So like Alex Caruso is one of those guys for you. And what do you see him in Oklahoma City? Why is he going to end up putting them over the top?
I mean, I was watching, said I was at the game last night. He's right. These guys are fresh in my mind. So seeing them play, and obviously Shea is Shea.
Mm-hmm.
He makes the plays. He had a struggling night. They found ways to win, and Shea finished the game off with 2 free throws. But before those 2 free throws, Alex Caruso knocks down a big 3.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a steal to go down the other end, has a fast break layup, and he gets fouled. Didn't make the end one, but he gets fouled. So he missed one of the free throws, but he ultimately scored the 4 points of the game to put them ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much win the game. They got another rebound after, and Shea got the free throws. But game winning, not just off steals. Like he's at the right place. He's guarding Kawhi in the paint, ends up stealing the ball that they're trying to throw to Zubac. I don't know how he got to it, but he sniffed it out. Made a read and got to it. And he comes with a bunch of energy. He knows good reads, but also seeing his trajectory. Not just because he was just an athlete before, from being an athlete to understanding to knowing how to set the table, be a point guard. To knock down shots at the right moment. But defensively, being a first-team all-defensive guy is not easy to do, especially on a losing team. And to do it in Chicago, it was like, what the hell? Like, he fills all the holes you're talking about. AC makes the winning plays offensively, more so defensively than offensively, but offensively and defensively. And said he does it without caring about getting the credit. Said in timely fashion, he's going to come up with something big for you, like knock down a 3 or some free throws or get a steal. That's going to put your team in a really good position.
He's one of those guys, you said it, and not to like draw like all the Carolina thoughts for the day, but like it's amazing what can happen when no one cares who gets the credit. Like he embodies that. He just embodies that. And so like you brought up a few things. Like for me, there was a Minnesota game earlier in the year. They won at Minnesota and he hit like 3 threes in a row in the fourth quarter. Like if he shoots the ball well for Oklahoma City, I don't know who beats them. Like he's going to be one of those huge swings. Like he's not one of those upper echelon shooters where you're like, man, we can't give him shots. Like he's going to end up getting shots in their offense. Like if he shoots the ball well, it's lights out. Like I don't know what you can do, but
because he's so good at driving, he's also good at penetrating and making plays. So you want to give up him like a contested 3, then actually like run him off the line type of, so you live with him contested. And he said he's one of those guys that wasn't shooting well most of the night. And then he hit the big shot at the end of the night. I think he was like 0 for 4 at the time.
If he shoots well, it's over. Yeah. One thing with him, and I don't know if you saw the documentary that they did about the G League guys. He had an interview in it. I think they followed the New Orleans G League team. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But they had an interview with him. And he gave this quote about most guys in the G League don't understand that you're trying out, the role you're trying out for in the NBA is the janitor. You're not trying out to be the CFO, the CEO, the COO. Like that's not the role you're trying out for. You're trying out for the janitor role. And like that mindset, like he came from the place where like if we were doing this list years ago, he would have been at one point on, the Danny Green All-Stars first team of Team Stick. I love it, man. He's going to play an incredible role in this playoffs. I'm excited to see how it looks with those 2 guys in Oklahoma City. Incredible additions. All right, our third guy on the list from the Boston Celtics, averaging 14 points, 3.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, shooting at 47, 42, and 84, shooting 7.9 threes a game on 42%. 74% of his shots are from 3. I mean, he's a very unique archetype. And one of the things about the Danny Green All-Stars is like a lot of these guys, you got to see it early. And they saw it early. They gave him a deal when it didn't look like it. Peyton Pritchard.
Got him for cheap.
Peyton Pritchard, man. Cheap. Tell me why you love Peyton so much.
He's just a gritty little guy, man, that just doesn't take no shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just, and you're talking about his numbers on offense, but defensively, he's like, I tried to back him. He's not letting anybody back him down. He's not going to let you post up. He really is a competitor. Full on, all around. He don't care who you are. He ain't backing down. And he's fearless. He's not scared to take any shot. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm letting people know I'm here. And I got the balls to take whatever shots or make whatever plays to let you know I'm not going anywhere. And then I think there was a moment where they're talking about trading him or this, that, or him want to be in a better spot, more opportunity. but they knew how valuable he was and how good he was coming off that bench, and I could see it. But he's just a gritty, grindy type of guy, man, that just said he don't care, don't take nothing from no one,
Yeah.
and not as scared to make the big plays and obviously make some big shots too. Like, he's a more mature Jordan Poole.
Oh, there you go. I
When
like
Jordan
that.
Poole
Yeah.
had that year, obviously he's shorter, but Jordan Poole had a great year where he's making all those half court shots or end of the buzzer shots. Like, you can count on Peyton Pritchard. If you need a shot with under 4
He's
seconds
not
to
worried
go,
about if he
find
misses from
him.
50, 60, 70. He
He's not.
doesn't
He don't
care.
care,
Yeah.
and he makes it pretty. He makes them good. So I'm finding him. He's one of those guys like, he finds the rim. He has good touch. End of the clock. Somehow when the pressure gets higher or bigger, like, he's zoning in and he's more locked in and focused on making that shot or that play. So he's just like one of those gritty guys that you have to give a lot of credit to, that they got him for cheap. There's not many guys you're going to find that is that good on that type of deal.
Yeah. One of the things on all these guys is like you've got to have them. And now Hartenstein and Caruso, like Caruso, that's a little bit different. Like, they could have been on this list probably last year, but Caruso hasn't been in those situations. But Pritchard, they got him early. That he was in their building, like, they saw it. They were like, we believe in this. We're going to invest in this. Like, we're going to nourish this. We're going to foster this, and we're going to kind of like let it flourish in that sense. And I think for me, one thing I love so much about him is like, if you filter it into 500 minimum, so 85 players have qualified for this. So basically, like, starting point guards, like high usage guys, like wing guys, it's pick and roll stats. And he's 8th in the league in points per direct, 1.104. So like, that's one of those for me is his versatility of how he can shoot the ball. He can shoot the ball off the bounce and he can shoot it off the catch. And it allows him to play with these guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, where you can actually put him in the action to be like, hey, we're gonna use you to create this advantage. Now, sometimes you get a few turnovers from him because he's a little bit smaller if he gets blitzed right. But in general, he can start the action and he can also finish it on the backside. So like, having that profile to be able to shoot off the bounce and shoot off the catch in the NBA, it sounds like it should be something that like, oh, if you can shoot, you can shoot, but it's not
easy.
It's not. It's just not.
There's guys that are very good off the catch or pin down. He can come off a pin down. He can come up off a catch and shoot, and he can do off the dribble. That is very hard to do. It said there's not many guys that can do it. Like I said, you're talking about Dame, Steph. Like, these are the best in the world at doing it, and he's one of those guys that have somehow mastered it to be able to do both.
His shooting profile is one of the things I love the most about him. And a lot of people, you think about, that's more like a shot selection profile. They think about, no, it's how his body can shoot the ball. Like, my shooting profile, when I think about it, like, can you shoot off DHO? Can you shoot off pick and roll? Can you shoot off closeout? Can you shoot off pin down? Like, that's the shooting profile. And like, that's not a profile that a lot of guys have. You don't have all 4 of those. Like, ISO, can you shoot off those 5 actions? And if you can, and you shoot at a high clip, you're a rare breed in the NBA. So next guy on the list, this traded midseason. He's one of those guys that he's made big runs before. You've kind of seen him in that setting, and he fits the profile of, wow, this guy can really guard up to 5s and down to like kind of guards. He's the perfect switchable defender, and he fits perfectly in the roster construction that he's in. The numbers don't jump off the page at you in terms of the raw counting stats. About 8 points, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 44%, 39%, 63%. Like, it's not out of control counting stats, but his impact just cannot be understated when you watch the game. And it's Dorian Finney-Smith, and he's one of those guys that has a chance to make a huge run this spring and be a big part of what LeBron and Luka do.
He's had a great rhythm chemistry with Luka even before with Dallas. And I feel like he was underrated there. Like, he was a big reason why Dallas was good. And obviously Luka looks good regardless, but it looks really good when you have guys like this surrounding you. And a big part of the reason that LA's defense was in the top for some odd reason when they traded for Luka, those games that they were winning, ironically, their defense had gotten better. It didn't show the other night against Chicago, but he's the reason why they can have Bron at the 5. They can go small ball, or
he guarded 5s a lot in Brooklyn this year. He started at 5 for
5s,
Brooklyn.
4s, 5s, and just switching down the line and be able to make the right play. And he does the dirty work. He said he doesn't care about getting the points. He'll shoot a shot or two. here and there, but it's not like I need a bunch of shots or I need this. He's doing the dirty work. He's cutting to the basket. He's doing the athletic stuff of getting rebounds or backdoor cuts. Like I said, a little dunk here or there. But he's a guy that I've watched since his Dallas days, and was like, this guy's a key piece, and he kind of underrated. He was never like paid a crazy amount of money.
No, he's not underrated on the Danny Green All-Stars. He's not underrated here. We rate him properly.
He had a good contract. It was a good one, but it wasn't like out the water. Like like a Derek White, or even Derek White's going to Drew Holiday, but he wasn't getting that. But he was one of those guys that was very key in terms of, this is a guy I need on my team as a role player if I want to win.
Yeah.
If I'm recruiting somebody or I'm scouting somebody, I'm like, this is who we need to get.
You mentioned the defense, and it's interesting. I was looking up him, Luka, and LeBron together because that's what he's here to do. He's here to connect that lineup. He's here to cover up, the things that Luka needs. And they're on the court 386 possessions so far. It's still a relatively small sample size, but in that time, they're plus 5.2, which is pretty nice. Not great, but pretty good. He's in a lineup with Gabe Vincent, Jackson Hayes, and Dorian Finney-Smith, his most used lineup. They're plus 12.6. Like, that's really nice to see. But in that Luka and LeBron time, their defensive rating is 110 points. Like, that's a really nice defense. That would be top 3 defenses on the year in the league. Like, that's a real legitimate defense. And so, like, that's the thing that I think we were talking about. It's not the raw stats, and it's the things where you have to watch. Like, he's making a cut that's drawing defenders to him and opening up something behind him. He just does all those little things. And I think some of it might be, you think about like your path, his path is very similar from Florida, like was not expected to be one of these guys that's going to be, okay, you need him on every championship team, but he's done those things in the Alex Caruso vein, in the Danny Green vein, where like he knew what role he was trying out for. And a lot of times, like, yes, it's situational. You got to be in the right situation, but you have to have the self-awareness in that situation to have people continue to believe in you, continue to empower you. And like, this guy has that to a T. He knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing out there, and he leans into it. And that's not the cool, sexy stuff. Like, that's the janitorial things. And like, it's one of the things why we love him so much.
Yeah. Knowing who you are. He knew who he was at an early start, which gave him an advantage. And, we look at the trade with Luka and AD. You automatically think, Bron is 40 years old. He's not playing defense as much as he used to. And Luka is a guy that doesn't really play on the defensive end. And you're like, who the hell's going to clean that up? The only person in the league that can clean that up is Anthony Davis at the rim. Everybody thinks rim protection. Jackson Hayes is a good rim protector, but if you have a guy that can rotate, that can deflect or defend, just as good as a cleanup as it is, as a rim protector.
Yeah.
And he's shown that. And we all think like, exactly. So he's been the guy to be able to help. He's alert. He's in tune. He's locked in. He's communicating, and he's in the right position at all times. Like with a Draymond. But Draymond also anchors the defense, but being in the right spot at the right time. And that's why Golden State, so Draymond and Jimmy, those guys are, figuring out and anchoring the defense is why I make Golden State so much better also. And that's because of their offense, but defensively they're able to rotate. He's one of those guys as well.
Yeah. We love him. I think one of the cool things is like you mentioned, like rim protection. Like sometimes it's like early deterrence, and Oklahoma City does this better than anybody else. They prevent drives, they prevent paint touches. But Dorian Finney-Smith, one of my favorite things to see is like when you're in the situation where you're going to be rotating, like I don't always love when you're coming over late to make a block. I really love when you're there early and like you're preventing the action from even happening. Like you're just sniffing it out early. And like he's one of those guys that rotates early. He sniffs things out. Like he can guard 2 and an X out. Like he's just really, really good at the janitorial stuff. And that's kind of like what we love in this action. So our last guy, this guy was a bit controversial for me, but you really loved him. Like you're on this train. I think he's one of your younglings, one of your like Raptor younglings. I think that's why. 36 minutes a game, like definitely the most minutes out of any of our Danny Green All-Stars. 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, slashing at 46, 37, 80. He's got 2.4 stocks per game. Like that's one of the things that really sticks out of him. He's, in Danny Green's eyes, one of the strongest guys in the league, OG Anunoby.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to pick a Knick, right? If I'm going to choose one of the Knicks,
I got to pick one of my guys. Knicks, pretty much. Like we had to talk you out of. We had to talk you out of some Knicks.
Well, it was two. Mostly, it was between Josh and OG, and of course, I'm going to choose one. I mean, off the bench, there was not much there.
I mean, you probably would have picked Deuce McBride, Campaign, and Precious
Nah,
Achua if we would have let you. But OG is who you went
nah.
with, and like, what do you love about OG? Because there's a few things that really pop out to me. But like, when you think about him as a guy that's going to help put them over the top, what is it about OG?
I mean, before he was sought after as such a high, like they traded so much for him or gave him the extension, big contract in Toronto. He was the reason why. Like I think they almost beat Boston in the bubble,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were
and,
close.
and they had Fred, Kalo, Pascal. Pascal was the guy. He's the reason why they won 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
He hit the game winner, big shot. He constantly saved them time and time again with defensive plays, offensive plays, whether it's a steal, a layup, a block, or a 3-pointer to close the game at the buzzer.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, that series is over in 4, maybe 5. They go 7 games because he's that guy. And he defensively, obviously, he'll make some mistakes here and there, some immature mistakes where he'll reach in and get a foul, but he'll take the risk, and a lot of times he'll get the reward. And I seen him. I said he was good, young, athletic kid, and we won one basically without him because he had a cyst burst in his stomach. He didn't play for us really pretty much at all. At the whole playoffs, he didn't play for us, but during regular season he did. But seeing him come from that as a role guy and Nick Nurse's system and kind of look for like more minutes and more opportunity. And, more he's now kind of find himself knowing who he is, where he doesn't need the ball and try to make plays off the bounce. He did more in Toronto. But he said he's a guy that is a glue guy. And in the playoffs last year, when they had injuries, he'll hit some threes, knock down some shots. Before he got injured, I think he on his way to like a 40 ball. But he can give you 30 or 40. Obviously, he can score in bunches, but defensively, he can make the plays. He can get to the rim. He can finish at the rim. He was an Aaron Gordon type guy.
Yeah.
Before, without having the expectation of being Aaron Gordon at the time. I mean,
before that was so in vogue.
Yeah, so Aaron Gordon came into Orlando, was already like they gave him the keys to be the guy. He came into Toronto as a young guy and was like, you have to work your way up. We'll see what you become. We already got Kawhi here, Pascal, Kalo, Fred. And then after me and Kawhi left, there was still guys in front of him to Fred, Kalo, Pascal, and you're just another guy here. But he was the reason why they continue to stay in games, win games, and be in series. So that's why I was fond of OG, always fond of OG.
You mentioned this earlier of like, we've talked about all these guys, like they have everybody on the Danny Green All-Stars, whether you're on Team Stick or you're on Team Over the Top, like you've mastered the skill of self-awareness. You know where you fit inside the team infrastructure. You know what you're great at, what you're not great at. And so like where you need to plug holes. And OG, you mentioned it earlier, there was a point where he thought he needed the ball to get the bag. He thought he needed to be the guy doing the Kawhi Leonard role to get the bag. And it's one of those things that it happens to younger guys when you don't have the crazy money yet. Like you're well off already, but you don't have the like multi-generational wealth yet. And it's one of those things you see your peers getting it for doing certain things. And you think, I got to do that. And you start to try to bully your way to it. It happened with Jonathan Kuminga earlier, last year or something like that. And OG has found that sweet spot of self-awareness, what he does really well, what he doesn't do well. And this year he's 6th in the NBA in total closeouts. He's got 580 according to Second Spectrum. And his buckets, he's assisted on 83% of his buckets. So this is not ISO, I need to do this. This is, let me catch this closeout. If it's a late, like long closeout, I'm going to hit this shot. If it's short and I can drive it, I'm going to get downhill and go finish this. Let me get out in transition. Let me make this smart cut. Like, is my guy helping up the lane? Cool. I'm going to get a lob. And offensively, he can kind of fit into all those little buckets. Like he can play in the dunker like Aaron Gordon. He can space the floor in the corners. He can move a little bit. You're not going to move him coming off ball screens like we were talking about Peyton Pritchard's shot profile. He's not going to be able to do that, but he's going to be able to space the floor, and then he's going to be able to also attack the paint in a different way and impose his physicality because he is a specimen when it comes to that. So the ability to kind of like do those different things in terms of how he uses his physicality, being able to space the floor a little bit, and also understanding like I don't need to make things happen. Like I'm going to play off of other advantages. It's a huge deal in terms of the self-awareness aspect of this.
Yeah, he found out or came to terms of who he is a little bit later. More so when he got to New York, because before that it was give me the ball. I want to get more opportunity. I want to do that. And I'm like, OG, it's okay not to be, not everybody's going to be the guy.
Did you ever talk to him? Like, so Dylan Brooks talked to you? Yeah. So like, how prevalent is this? Because like, I've worked with guys that like have wanted to be the guy, and like, I've never heard them ever say like, oh, I went to so-and-so and like this. Now I would try to I would try to prompt things because like,
I don't think he didn't come to me and ask. It was more of, it was like, hey, what are you thinking? Like when I think before he was getting traded or what moving, I was like, do you like Toronto? He's like, it's like, they're supposed to be offering you an extension. He's like, man, I don't know. And I'm like, what don't you know? You know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, they're offering you money, take the money. Don't just, I'm all for betting on yourself, but if teams or people are offering you a good contract that's north of 40 million, north of 50 million, if they're offering you 70, 80 million, you can always figure it out later because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It was like, he's like, I don't know if I want to be here. And I'm like, we sat down, we ate food. And I think we're talking about how the city of Toronto had changed after COVID because they were in Florida for a little bit in Tampa, and then how things with Nick were. And he's like, I just want to be somewhere where I have more opportunity. I'm tired of being on the back burner. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can make good money. You don't, and the opportunity doesn't mean that you're going to be great at that. Like, not everybody can do that. And, it's a lot more pressure, a lot more expectation too, OG, when you become the guy. And I don't know if you need that and said realistically, I don't know. I think do you want to win or do you want to just get a lot of buckets? Because realistically for you, if you're on a winning team, I think at best you're like the third option. Being a 1-2 option on any group, winning or losing, is very hard to do. One, and it's hard to do it for a long period of time. I think, and I try to advise guys, like, it's okay to be third is great. Fourth option is even like good because you can be the expectation and you can last a lot longer. You know what I'm saying? Just staying in that field. When you have to be one option, it's hard. And if you only obviously OG can be more than, he's not a one-trick pony, so he can do other things. But most guys that are in that field are one-trick pony. And after you can't do that anymore, your value drops so much after that. And you're only able to do that for 5-6 years, maybe, like at peak. It's hard to keep the number 1-2 option going for yourself. So I was just like, yo, OG, I think, and I was trying to be real with him. Like, I don't know if you would be a 1 or 2 option in most places. Like, he was all, and he gave me some examples. Look at so-and-so, look at so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that you're that. He's grown into being better, but he's still not the guys that he mentioned. But I'm like, yo, it's okay. You can still make a good amount of money doing these things, And so we had a conversation, but it wasn't like,
God, you got Dylan Brooks the bag. You saved OG from going down a dark path publicly of demanding the ball.
He was getting that regardless. He was going there regardless, and he just kind of fell into
sage advice like, all right, from Daniel Green.
Because of the system, he's like, I got the extension regardless. I'm in a good city, and we have Jalen Brunson, who's the number 1 guy, and then they had Julius at the time, and now Karl Anthony Towns. So it's like, just by nature, it's like I'm behind those two, and they got Mikal Bridges, who's another guy who's also playing a role. So he's like, if this guy can play a role, I guess I'm gonna have to play a role too. So it just happened, I guess, organically, or
it helps, man.
How it's supposed to happen for him.
Those are our 5. We've got Isaiah, Caruso, Peyton Pritchard, Dorian Finney-Smith, OG Anunoby, the Danny Green All-Stars, the over-the-top role players that will have a chance to decide the championship picture. Danny, thank you so much for doing this. What do you want to leave the Danny Green All-Stars with? This is the first annual Danny Green All-Stars. Like, we're not going to send them certificates or anything. Well, we might send them some digital ones.
If they win a championship, I might send a certificate.
Yeah. So what do you want to leave your first annual group of Danny Green All-Stars with? What message would you like to send to them?
You guys, they deserve a lot of flowers. You guys deserve a lot of credit. First of all, best of luck. Hope one of you guys win a championship. But you deserve a lot of credit. Keep doing what you do. Embracing who you are, knowing who you are, and I guess just passing it on, send the elevator down to the next group of guys of letting them know they can be a really good player in this league, make a lot of money in this league. And the sooner they know who they are, the better for them and the better for their group and their team, and that they can allow their group to win. So just keep being you, playing some winning basketball.
There we go, man. The Danny Green All-Stars. Thank you so much for doing this, Danny. We'll check in with you later, man.